Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of my videos. Today I've got another match that I played against my friend, and this was just like the previous week. We played each other, played a long game against each other. We played a slightly shorter one this time round, so it was only 30 minutes plus 30 minutes for this particular one, but it was still a very interesting game nonetheless. And what we're hoping to do in sort of future videos is, or future games that we play against each other, is prepare certain openings against each other that perhaps we struggle against, or we want to get a little bit of practice on. Hopefully next week I think we're going to be practicing the Rosalimo, because I want to try out maybe the Rosalimo attack against the Sicilian, and I think the following week then we're going to try maybe sort of a Dutch or something as black. But in any case, this is how the game went. He was playing as white, I was playing as black, and my opponent played d4. I started off with e6, and you've seen hopefully if you've seen my e6 repertoire videos, you understand why I play this move. It just sort of keeps flexible, and I normally will go into a Queen's Gambit declines, or a French if he plays e4. In your case, he plays c4, and now I play d5, and this, as again, if you want to check out my video on the Queen's Gambit declined, a really solid way of playing it is what any world champion plays, as pretty much every world champion has played the Queen's Gambit declined. So a very solid way of playing. You get nice simple setup, and you should get a nice game. And I've had some really good success with it in over the board play. The Queen's Gambit declined. It's very difficult to crack. Often my opponent will try and overpress a bit too much, and in which case, because I'm so solid, I end up sort of beating my opponent out pretty easily. But we'll see in this game. Actually, my opponent he played it in a very on the white side a very unusual way that I've never seen before in the Queen's Gambit decline. So let's see how we get on with it. So knight to f3, and here I play knight to f6, knight to c3, bishop e7, and we see bishop f4, and normally you see bishop to go into g5, but bishop f4 is just as good as well. You'll see this line particularly when there's an early bishop e7 before the knight to f3, and I'll be honest with you, I actually prefer the bishop on g5 as opposed to f4. I find it on f4 really annoying because it potentially sets up this lovely square for this knight to jump into, and it can be a real obstacle to try and remove that knight from that square. In any case, another thing that I was thinking about as well is this potential threat that could happen here, but I guess I was kind of maybe seeing a few ghosts at this point. I perhaps should have made a little bit flexible and just castled here, and this still gives me options of playing c5 here, you see, but because I was a little bit worried about this move, which I don't know why I was worried about it, because I've played this variation hundreds of times, because I just play knight to a6 and I defend the pawn, and white's just wasted the move doing this. After maybe let's say e3, I push here, and the white knight has to go back, and I get a nice square here for my knights, and potentially I have got ideas now of capturing here on c4, followed by knight going into d5 and getting it into a really active square. Typically, I've seen a lot of variations. If I can get one of the knights to this square without any dramas, I can get a really nice position. So that's something I would really hope to get in these particular sort of triangle-esque structures, because they're just really solid. If you get a knight here, it just controls the entire board, so it's so good. Okay, anyway, going back. So what actually happened in the game? So instead I play c6, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the problem is it's a bit committal now, and I can still play for the c5 break, but it's taken two moves as opposed to one, and I play with a slightly more cramped position than I would be normally used to now. But okay, we'll see how we get on. So e3 was played. I castled. My opponent playing queen to c2. I play knight b to d7, and here my opponent really shocked me here. Now normally I was fully expecting bishop to d3. Afterwards I would actually capture here, forcing him to waste a tempo, and then maybe launch out with stuff like b5, maybe a5, or actually even probably not a5, maybe a6 to support the b5 pawn. And this has been played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. This sort of position. If I look on the Masters database, let's actually have a look. Oh, it's only been reached 12 times. So I tell a lie. It has been reached 100 times. But it's certainly on the Lichess book. I've still got 500 games in this position. It looks very similar to that of the Moran variation, which you see in the Slav. Is it the semi-Slav? Yeah, probably semi-Slav or something. But okay, so that's what I was expecting. In any case, my opponents, in fact, played the move g4, which totally threw me by surprise. And before you kind of go, well, this is a terrible move, in actual fact, it's a really difficult move to try and refute. Obviously, if I just do nothing against it, let's say, I don't know, I play a move like h6 to stop the pawn from coming forward. In actual fact, this is a pretty bad position I'm going to put myself in. After g5, h takes on g5, knight takes on g5, I've got this horrible hole in my kingside. And of course, because I've played in this sort of triangle-y setup, it's actually extremely difficult to try and maneuver my pieces around to get to the defense. I might have to play a move like rook to e8, followed by my knight trying to maneuver around here. But I've always got to deal with the fact that I've got this big gaping hole in my kingside. So already things like h4 look dangerous. It just didn't look particularly good. So how do I best react to it? Well, if your opponent plays a gambit, maybe you should try, and I think the most testing line is just taking the gambit, and well, this pawn is undefended, so I decide to take it. And okay, I'm up a pawn here, but it comes with a lot of venom now. Rook to g1, so now hitting down here, and hitting my knight, obviously. So I decided to move my f pawn forward, which now defends the knight. And I guess I was thinking I was doing okay here. This structure, very similar to that of a Stonewall Dutch. It's very difficult for e4 to be pushed here now, which is an added bonus for me. Okay, it leaves my e5 square a little bit weak, but I've got this knight for now defending it. The challenge I'll have later in the position is obviously I love to move this knight from this square to try and get my bishop out. And maybe I'd try and reroute it around this way or something to help in the defence of the attack. But the problem is, as soon as I move it, this knight can potentially just jump straight into e5. Okay, so let's see how it goes anyway. So h3 was played, and now my knight has to move, so I run back to the square. Bishop came to h6, so now hitting this pawn. And there's not really any good ways of responding to this. You might be thinking to yourself, what about a move like rook to f7? And I looked at this move in my head and I immediately just saw, oh, it's just terrible, absolutely terrible for me. Knight to g5 is just crushing. Now, it looks as though, okay, I can take here, which looks really good. The problem is knight captures here, and that comes with a discovered attack. Discovered check and the discovered attack, because now this king is in check and also the queen is falling. So I can't do that. But the other problem I've got now is as soon as I move my rook away, well, this knight just jumps in. It's now delivering a fork. So actually the best move is in fact just to do nothing here. I'll have to play a move like bishop to f8 to try and hold the position afterwards after knight captures. Take back with the king because obviously my queen's under attack, and in which case the bishop can just move back. White has ended up an exchange ahead. My king is not much safer than it was before, and well, I think White's got a clear advantage here. So going back then, what actually happened in the game? So I played what I thought was pretty much the only move in this position, and you can kind of see already, what black can go wrong so easily here. And I played what I didn't really think was a nice move, knight to h5, to try and hold on to the g7 pawn. But my knight hasn't really got much prospects here now. Already White is potentially threatening to come bishop to e2, and maybe at some point try and exchange off this knight to relinquish its defence. So let's see how I react to this. So I decided to move my king Well, first he castled long, sorry, so he castled long to get his other rook to join in with the attack. Why not? I mean, I'm not doing anything particularly active on my queen side for the time being. You know, all the play is going to be what happens on this king side now. So he's totally safe in doing so. I played king to h8 to try and get off this this pin now, and White's got a bit of an uncomfortable decision to make now. Where does he put his bishop? He obviously doesn't really want to do a move like this, as I think this is absolutely fine for White. Although it gives him this lovely square, I think I can defend this quite calmly with a move like g6. Now my king side is nicely defended. Okay, I've got loads of dark square weaknesses everywhere, but he's no longer got a dark squared bishop, so it doesn't matter too much here. If he tries to do maybe a move like let's say knight to g5 to try and hit this pawn, I could just go knight to f6. My pawn is defended by the bishop. You know, I've potentially got things like jumping my knight in there. I think I'm doing okay here, although I would still say that, you know, White can still complicate the position up. He's got a lot of pieces attacking me, but I seem to be stabilizing okay here. I think adequate, maybe defending, maybe not there, but maybe rook coming up or something, or whatever, and I think I'm doing okay. So alright, so with that in mind, really the only move, and pretty much the natural move, is bishop to g5. And, well, I guess I played probably my first little mistake in this game. I guess the most not normal looking move was really just capturing this bishop, and I think I'm doing okay. Instead, I just sort of played a move that kind of loses the tempo. I played h6 now, and okay, it doesn't look so bad, but the problem is the bishop is going to capture here anyway, which is what he does. The other challenge with this move is now I've got loads of light square weaknesses around my king. You know, and this bishop here is still active, this queen's on light squares as well. This creates some long-term problems for me. I find it really difficult to end up defending this position. So the bishop captured off, I took, and okay, I still had some ideas of maybe trying to get this bishop out. Perhaps maybe should have thought about doing b6 bishop a6 or something to try and get my bishop out of this tomb that I've created for him, but it didn't really materialize. C takes. I took this way. I didn't really want the knight jumping here potentially and doing stuff. Although actually, to be honest with you, it probably wasn't anything really with that knight jump. So I was perhaps seeing a little bit of ghost there. So I took this way anyway. I think, yeah, again, it's probably in hindsight I should have taken the other way. But okay, in any case. Bishop came to e2, so now there's this potential threat, and I've always got this problem in my position as to how to handle this knight. He's now already threatening, potentially coming to this square and then jumping into g6. Okay, the good news is my knight's there to defend it, and also if it came to this square, obviously my queen can defend there as well. So, but already I'm starting to generate some threats against me. So what did I play here? So I went a bit ballistic at this point. I think this is the challenge when you're defending in a position, and something I need to try and I struggle defending. I'll be honest with you, it's probably my weakest part of my game. You know, that's why you've seen a lot of my games I like to go on the attack a lot, because I don't like defending at all. I tend to play very loosely in defence. I'm not very good at creating counterplay or trying to get my pieces to good squares. And well, the psychology of it is obviously when you're defending all the time, you forget about your plans entirely. You just become totally insular. You're only really thinking about yourself and how can I defend myself, and then you forget kind of the whole picture of the game is, okay, there's a whole game to be played here. I could maybe come back in the game, maybe fight back later on. But as I say, when you're sort of stood defending all the time, you end up just kind of getting stuck in these thoughts of, oh my god, I'm just going to lose this game and I don't know how to defend it. And I played, I think, what I consider a bit of a dodgy move. F4, I mean, I had the idea of maybe starting to take and create some counterplay here. But you can already see there's some potential challenges here. Already he's relinquished, I've relinquished my defence of this g6 square, so already queen to g6 just looks lovely. And not only that, I mean, this bishop, by moving this pawn, this bishop now has a free highway that it could potentially come down. So, you know, just a simple threat. It sounds stupid, but by playing queen here followed by queen to d3, he's already threatening checkmate. It's not terribly easy to try and find a way to defend against this. So I think this was probably one of the biggest mistakes in my game, and you know, I thought my position was much worse than it actually was here. I mean, again, I'm up a pawn, but for some reason I just seemed to slightly implode here. I think a better idea would have been maybe queen to e7 here, f7 here, just remaining calm. Okay, it does allow the knight to maybe come into this square. So maybe this was my worry, was knight to h4. But even here, I can actually defend this. It looks like an odd move, because okay, you know, everything's kind of hanging here. But g5 I can play, and although I'm loosening my king, everything's well defended here. You know, my knight's defended by the queen. He can no longer jump into the square. You know, this pawn is well defended. You know, I've got two pieces defending against it. So in actual fact, it would have to come back to f3, and after which I'm actually okay here. You know, it's not that perilous. I would have to play a move like b6. Let's say king to b1 to get off this this semi-open file. Bishop to b7, and my position starts to stabilize a little bit here. I can get my rooks over. I can hopefully defend the position. I could probably even think of ideas of maybe even potentially coming back the bishop up this way after my rooks and my knights moved along, or even just try and focus on counterplay with c5, maybe break open on this on the c file. But as I say, it's one of the things that I seem to struggle a lot in my game, and I end up sort of playing moves that, you know, I always think I'm in a losing position, and I end up sort of just totally screwing up my entire position. So, okay, what happened anyway? So we played the move f5 here, which is just not a great move. My opponent played queen to g7. In actual fact, the computer really liked e4 here and just totally explode the position up, and you know, use the fact that he's got these lovely light square strengths to win the position. So I'll just show you an example line. A knight captures. The knight gets really active now. It's got so many good squares it can go to. Knight here, knight going there. You know, maybe b6 to try and stop it, and then suddenly these knights just jump into my position. You know, he didn't even have to worry about this because he's got this other knight jumping into there, and already it just starts to get bad very, very quickly. You know, and you can definitely say White's winning here. He's up in exchange. He's got you know, he hasn't got all these weird pawn weaknesses everywhere like I have, and I think he's just got a much easier game to play with here. You know, at some point later on, he's going to maybe round up this pawn on f4 and potentially crush my position. Okay, so going back then, so what happened in the actual game? So the queen came to g6. I moved my other knight along to try and help defend. Now, of course, as soon as I move this knight, this now allows this other knight to now jump in, and it's very uncomfortable to try and hold against this knight now. So well, again, I went a little bit crazy here. I tried to create some complications where perhaps I could have maybe held it. Maybe queen to e8 was probably a safe move. It doesn't look great because, well, it's okay. You know, I'll firstly show you the first line is maybe if the queen takes here, rook takes, knight to f7, and king to g8. You know, I lose a pawn here, and okay, it's not brilliant, but it's a playable position, as bad as it sounds. I could maybe hold this position because the queens are off. I've still got this bishop is now a lot more active on this. It's suddenly been unleashed in this position, but yeah, that didn't look too good. The other move is maybe, I'm just going to look at the computer recommends here, so maybe d to e1, after which I can take this pawn off. After f takes, I can think about then just starting to swap these rooks off. And okay, it's not great because I end up losing a rook here, but again, it's playable. I say that in loose terms. It's probably still a lost position. You can see the engine really likes white here, but you know, I think when you're playing these sort of positions, if you can get into a thing where you're not losing, then it can't be too bad. You know, at the very least, I'm actually still hitting this pawn. So you know, if you played a move like, I don't know, this move for example, I can, you know, can I not just take here? What's wrong with that? Okay, rook to h1. Yeah, that doesn't work. So no, okay, maybe not then. But it's, I could maybe get a draw here. Maybe I've got ideas of bishop here, maybe rook to e1, start hitting this backwards pawn. Maybe that could potentially create some problems for white. Okay, well let's see what actually was played then. So going back, so I continued to hang myself with knight to e4, which is just a clear blunder. Now my opponent captured this this other knight, and this was my idea. My thought process was, okay, maybe I can reroute this bishop around, maybe create some threats along here, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I don't know really what I was thinking too much, really, I suppose. I think my other idea was, you know, capturing this knight and creating some counterplay along here with my queen. You know, my bishop and my queen attacking there would have been quite interesting, but even then the king can just run away quite easily, so I wasn't too sure what I was thinking there. Okay, so bishop came to f5, and brilliant move from my opponents. Queen takes on f5, and yeah, what a nice move. And I probably should have stopped to show you that tactic a bit more, but essentially after rook captures, he's got this lovely fork now, and what a beautiful fork that is. You can see here I'm totally lost after h7. You count all the pieces. White is up a clear, in fact 2 pieces in this position, so a very, very dominant win now. So yeah, so after that I just played on and just to see what would happen. So I quit queen to b4, trying to create something along here. But now knight here with check. I went king to g8. Queen came to e6 with check. This is actually now showing mate in 11. I moved my king along. His other knight captured here. I captured back, and after this move, king here, he threw in the check with the queen. And after I moved, I let him have the checkmate at the end because I'm such a nice guy. Okay, so yeah, it was a very interesting game. You know, and something I didn't expect to face, and something that, you know, maybe isn't actually all that bad, this g4 idea. You know, certainly you look at it in an engine perspective, it gives me 0.03, which really isn't much. Like it's still quite equal. You would expect it to be much higher, like ±1 or something, so black being just up a clear pawn, but in actual fact, white gets a lot of play here, and it's certainly quite an interesting way of handling these sort of triangular structures that you might face in the orthodox Queen's Gambit declines. So, in any case, I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you for watching. Take care.